On today's episode, we're going to talk about some what we feel are some practical ways that people can uh, do what we talked about last week. Hopefully, you watched last week's episode. If you're not, you can go back and watch that. This might become a short. I don't know. If I would have taught myself 20 years ago that when my wife sounds like she's fighting me verbally, when my wife sounds like she's fighting me verbally, she's not fighting me. She's fighting to be heard by me. She's fighting to be understood by me. If I would have trained myself to know that, I could have saved myself from a lot of conflict. I could have saved us from a lot of conflict.
We all had to start somewhere. And we all had to first acknowledge and accept Jesus as Lord. And
then
then,
acknowledge our thinking is trash.
yeah, but you don't even acknowledge that in the beginning because you don't know that.
Right.
And I used to look at renew what does it mean? Renew my mind. What does that mean? You
Right.
see what I'm saying?
A lot of people don't get that.
So, but that's the journey that God knows that you're on. Only because of the church is so twisted today, where discipleship wasn't in
That
it.
never moves. This is how we learn what real love proves. Next level marriage podcast. We're calling you to something deeper, something pure and true. Male and female, just the way he plays.
To another episode of the Next Level Marriage Podcast. I am one half of your dynamic duo. I go by the name of Dr. James Bird, and my lovely wife, she goes by the name of,
Dr. Angel Bird.
and together we are
The
Lovebirds. And as always, we are happy to be here to share information, wisdom, insight, experience, and all those things concerning marriage and relationships. And before we get started, do me a favor, smash that like button. Help us get this information out to other people. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe to this. And if you hear something that you think would be a blessing to you and a blessing to others, please share with someone else you know. Many, many couples are going through it. Marriage is under assault. It's under attack. Some it's we don't know certain tools and strategies and things to be better at it. But there's also an onslaught from the enemy because he hates marriage because marriage represents Christ in the church. And so he's always hated marriage. And so he's always going to try to attack a marriage that's trying to do it God's way. And so we want each week these episodes and the shorts that we do to be something that gives you some hope, some encouragement, some tips, some tools, some strategies to take your marriage to the next level. Your marriage could be struggling. We want to help it get better. Your marriage could be okay, but you want better than okay. Marriage could be pretty good, but you don't want to stop at pretty good. You want to keep going higher and higher. You want to keep taking it to the next level. And so that's what the Next Level Marriage Podcast is all about. And so, yeah. How are you doing today, Miss Fine Lady?
I am amazing.
Amazing. All right. You look amazing.
Thanks.
All right. And so on today's episode, we're going to talk about some what we feel are some practical ways that people can do what we talked about last week. Hopefully you watched last week's episode. If you're not, you can go back and watch that. And in last week's episode, we talked about 3 ways that you could allow conflict to, instead of tearing away and causing a drift and distance in your intimacy in your relationship, actually conflict can be used to actually bring you closer together. And you got to be, really skilled to do that, because if not, conflict will rip you apart. And so on last week's episode, we talked about taking a step back. We're not gonna go deep into it, but we talked about taking a step back. We talked about recognizing that the person is not the problem, and then we talked about working together to solve the disagreement, misunderstanding, whatever it may be. But as we talked about it, we recognize that a lot of people can't do this. They don't know how to do it. And just hearing us talk about it in one episode doesn't automatically put you in a position to handle it, because most of the times conflict or disagreements, misunderstandings, they come out of the blue. You were not expecting it. Everything was just fine. We were just tiptoeing through the tulips, just singing. Just I was just noticing, admiring you. You were admiring me. We just have a good conversation, and all of a sudden, something is said, something is heard, something is not heard, something is missaid, misspoke, whatever the case may be. We're different. We say things different, whatever. And then all of a sudden, cup high yow. The mood changes.
Instantly.
You can feel the chill in the room. You can feel everything. All the energy is sucked out. Everything, whatever, however you want to describe it, it happens in an instant. And generally, we go into protection mode, and we want to protect ourselves from what we're feeling in that moment. And fight or flight kicks in. All these different things kick in, and it's impossible for most people to actually move into an action plan in that moment to cease and desist. Most people get into it, and they go until they can't take it no more. They tap out, and at that point, as you've always say, things have been said that you can't take back.
Yep.
And so we're trying to keep you from keep getting to that place where things are said that you can't take back. We're trying to get you to the point where you can notice it quicker and change the dynamics. And if you can change the dynamics of conflict, man, there's a great opportunity to change the dynamics of the total dynamics of the intimacy in your relationship. Because more than likely, there's always going to be a lot of things that's going to come to most relationships that could bring conflict.
Yeah.
You know, as I said, we different, we think different, we speak different. There's outside challenges that come in as life be lifing. And so all these things can bring about misunderstandings or disagreements. But, you know, if we can really figure out a way to do this thing, to do conflict better, I think most couples can get past that point of divorce, separation, wanting to actually be around other people and not be around your mate and things like that. Listen, I love wanting to be around you. It doesn't feel good to not want to be around you because of some conflict or some disagreement. And so, and I know, I would imagine you probably feel something similar.
Yeah. You know, I always have a lot of time to think about things after a podcast. And I no longer think that conflict is based on everything was going perfect and then boom, it blew up. I am now convinced that conflict the name should change from being conflict to the way that you hear. Because everybody don't do that. The majority of people who do have to accept that there is something that is broken, and when they hear certain things, it causes them to operate from the place of the brokenness. And it's not that it has to be conflict. What has to change is the way you hear and the way you believe. Because if those two things changed, then your response would be completely different. Because most people hear attack. Most people hear they're saying something's wrong with me. They're not agreeing with me. They're saying I'm not good enough. They're saying all of these negative things that are not being said. But based on the conversation, that's what they hear through their ear gates versus what is trying to be said. Or, wait a minute, all I did is just say that. How did you get that out of there? How did you make this be such a big deal? And the other person, most of the time, is genuinely like, what just happened? When they're the ones who maybe be talking, and then the whole thing shifts. So people are going to spin their wheels for a long period of time trying to fix conflict when they need to be fixing themselves, how I hear, how I feel. Why does something so simple mess up my whole day, it's bigger than the word we've been throwing around for years, and that is in the arena of conflict. If human beings don't work on becoming the image of God and becoming and accepting the identity that God has given to us to embrace, then we will spin our wheels, not just in a relationship with a husband and a wife, but that can be anywhere, your job, your siblings, your parents, any relationship. And sometimes it takes longer to show up in other areas in those arenas because those people may not be, you don't want to act a fool on your job. You don't want to lose your job. So you take this willpower until you can't will it no more. But if it's somebody close, like a sibling or brother or something like that, it may come out just as much as it does in the husband and wife arena. And so I no longer think that we have a conflict problem. I think we have a broken problem in the way that we see and that we hear. And once again, and maybe I'll get a T-shirt eventually because I've been saying it for 100 years to say this is an inside job. And just like when you have prioritizing life or your structure of things that need to be done, and I call that crowding out, a whole bunch of people need to crowd out all of this negative information that they have in their brains and their minds concerning another person. And I believe once the work is done on that end, then we will be able to see conflict change in that arena where it seems like this is where everybody is. Most everybody is here because most people are not working on themselves. Because most people never come to the conclusion that maybe it's me too, or maybe I'm involved and it's not just the other person. And as long as that is our thought process, this is where we're going to live. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
And so I guess we can talk about some tips and strategies, practical ways to work on ourselves and our thinking and our thoughts and what we need to work on even before we work on how to respond. Because while we're working on our thoughts, we may be bumping into
Well, not maybe, we're going to.
our thoughts or our spouse's
Yeah.
thoughts or whoever's thoughts. And in those moments that we're bumping into these thoughts, we don't want these major setbacks that keep
But they're
happening.
going to happen. They're going to.
So you are not. So are you? So are you not believer that if something, I hear something wrong, whatever, and then it begins to raise my ire or raise something of defensiveness or whatever, which is about to trigger a conflict, and then I recognize that, and I don't want to do that because I don't want the aftermath of that.
Yeah.
That if I then say, you know what, let me take a step back. I feel myself, let me take a step back. I don't want to do that or whatever. And then we avoid the conflict. We avoid the landmine. You don't think you don't feel like that's a benefit in the process of while I'm trying to still work on, getting to the point while we're both trying to work on getting to the point where we never hear each other wrong, never misunderstand each other, never whatever.
I think anything like that can be a benefit, but do I think it's realistic in the arena where if I am really thinking what I'm thinking about you and how I'm feeling about you in those moments, or whoever's in the midst of that moment, I'm still responding because I still have a belief system. And the way that I hurt you is the way that I hurt you. Is that something that I want to do? 100%. But I am now operating in a place of realistic and unrealistic expectations. And we've matured enough to, the number one goal is to first recognize that this is what you need to do because it's not just the other person and that I'm thinking wrong and I'm responding from a place of brokenness. Most people can't even make their mouth say that. So the number one thing is to, even if you're failing at it, but you have owned it and recognized it, that's where it first starts.
Yeah, we said that a couple of
You
episodes
see what
ago.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's I don't care if it's 10 episodes
Yeah.
ago,
Yeah.
but that is where most
I'm
people
just
have.
agreeing with you.
Yeah,
That's
no.
yeah.
That's where most people have to go, and if they don't go there first, and if they only heard it one time, like we coming back to do this show because they need to hear it more than one time. So if it was 5 shows or whatever, however, now they need to hear it again because most people forget
Yeah.
that they need to accept that it's something inside of them that needs to change. And until people are ready to recognize that, then that part of what we desire to see them do in the step back method, would they be successful at it? Absolutely not.
Okay, so I think that I first of all I agree with everything that you just said, but I think that sometimes disagreements. I mean, let's say conflict. I think conflicts sometimes are not are triggered not always in me feeling a certain way about you or
No.
belief system about
Yeah,
you.
correct.
Sometimes they trigger from something simple that has nothing to do with how I feel about you, but just how I heard you say something.
Yeah, the way we hear.
Right. And so in that moment, if I thought I heard you say, we need to go somewhere at 1 o'clock. And then I'm like, but earlier you told me 10 o'clock, so I put something else on my schedule for 1 o'clock, and now we getting ready to get into a timing conflict or whatever. I may not in that point be thinking anything negative about you, and you may not be thinking anything negative about me. We're getting ready to get into a misunderstanding about the timing or what was said or things like that. And I'm saying in that moment, there's a chance that if we learn these tools, that we can say, okay, wait a minute. Let's not press down the road of who said what she said, he said. Let's just back it up and say, okay, what is it? What is the real time? What is it? The real time is 1 o'clock. Okay, I got to figure out how can I change something else because I put something else on my 1 o'clock because either I misheard you or you misspoke. We don't know which one. So now we avoided conflict. We avoided that big explosion where most people just keep going down the road. No, you didn't. Yes, you did. Yeah, you did say no. You know what I'm saying? And then that turns into a kaboom. That turns into a kaboom explosion.
Yeah, because I'm laughing because before we did the work and some of the work years ago, that's what we did. It's yes, you did. No matter if you see what I'm saying. So the point that is being made is that 10 years ago, we didn't have the ability to do that. Even if someone would have told me to step back or people had. Do you see what I'm saying? And so because of where we were at that point and the things that needed to change and the work that needed to be done. And so what I am saying is the listeners out there, some are in a better place than others. But most likely, you're normally talking to the people who are some closer to where you are. Not for real, but I'm just making a point. And I'm normally talking to the people who, like, literally is bawling their eyes out because they don't have the capacity or the ability in the moment because they haven't learned anything and they don't even know what it is. And that this sounds great to step back, but I ain't never been able to step back. And I can speak 20 years ago where I couldn't step back. And so I'm always speaking to the people that I know that may have a heart and their eyes is open like, oh my God, just tell me something that I can change. Yes, this is good information. And if you could just take a step back, it would literally change a lot of things if this can be consistent in your life. But we got to first acknowledge that you have a hearing problem and you have a broken problem that you need to now start doing the work consistently on yourself and not try to fix the other person and telling yourself that it would be different for you if they would just be different.
Yeah.
Because that's where most people believe.
Yeah, I wish I had the title of that book. I think from my Rise Up Kings guys, they had us read this book, and I read this book a year ago, whatever, and I remember telling you about it. And this author, he through hundreds of thousands of studies on people, and I think over a 7 to 10 year span or something like that, he came to find out that most people, I think he might have said everybody, but most people have really 7 basic needs. I mean, not all 7, but there's one of at least 7 basic needs that they have in them that kind of, you know, fight at our identity, if I could put it like that. And you mentioned some of this earlier when you were speaking. We either, at some point, I don't feel successful, I don't feel loved, I don't feel
Wanted, worthy,
needed,
all of
these
those things,
different
yeah.
type of things or whatever. And they can come from our childhood. They can come up, and none of us have perfect parents. None of us are perfect parents. So you can do the best you can, love God, and do the best you can to raise your child. But through some point, they can still feel like, I don't feel like I'm a success, or I don't feel good enough. I don't feel whatever. And so these things come up in everybody. So these are things that you need to identify in yourself, as what you're talking about. You need to identify yourself to work towards your identity. We speak a lot about identity, and identity is really what you believe about yourself.
Yep.
And what we talk about is how to get what you believe about yourself to match what God believes about you.
100%.
And that gap in there is huge.
Yeah.
But while even for people who really believe a lot of what God says about them, they can even have moments
Oh, absolutely.
where they hear something from,
Somebody
negative,
they're close to.
somebody they're close
And
to,
they feel that wound.
and it could be the way somebody phrased it, and the way they phrased it made them hear it as, "Oh, you're trying to say this about me," or whatever.
Absolutely.
And
The way you hear.
whenever we can really hone in on how something made us feel, that is where we need to work towards realizing that, you know what, it's not even so much about what they said or even how they phrased it. It's about how it made me feel, how I felt in that moment. And if I can get over how I felt or feel, then I would be able to handle no matter what somebody said. Because think about this. If I sit here and meditate for 60 seconds about how God feels about me and what God says about me and whatever, and then I have a conversation and somebody close to me, you say something negative or whatever, in that moment, it's not going to throw me because my mind is filled with identity. It's filled with who God says about me. But most of us don't walk around that full
Nope.
at all times on who we said. And
Most
some
of the
of us are way far away from
the mark completely.
From the mark of who God says about me.
And that's what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
because they're so far away from the mark, it'll take a miracle for them to step back, because they only see attack. They
Yeah.
only see you're saying something is wrong with me that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
And as long as that is what they're seeing and hearing, you cannot respond from another space. And so I'm trying to remember what you just said that I was getting ready. Oh, what even God has been revealing to me when I'm helping others is that deception comes in so many different ways. And people don't even know that they are deceiving this area, because this is not an area that seems like it's so sinful or it's something that you're doing is so ungodly.
Right.
This is, in one breath, you look at me and say, but I know God loves me. And then in 5 minutes, you say, I'm such a horrible person and I'm such a failure. They don't match up. Because if I know the true love of God and the way he feels about me, and that no matter how I perform or act or whatever, his love for me doesn't change, it's not fluctuated based on my behavior, then I'm going to get a different response out of me. But if you don't understand that and you feel like you have to earn it and you feel like you have to be deserving of it and all of those things, you're constantly in a war with yourself and really with God, because what you don't believe God believes about you is the reason we stay broken. Because the moment you take the identity that he has passed along to you at the finished work of the cross, we wouldn't have all this craziness that's happening.
Yeah.
is happening because of a belief system that you do not believe that you are who God says that you are.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say we use these terms that have come up through us through psychology and therapy and all of that. This is conflict. This is this is that. Those words are real and they sound great, but we got a bigger issue here. And the bigger issue is that all of these people are walking around, and once upon a time, us too, and walking around with all of this identity crisis going on, and you don't know if you're coming or going. So how in the world you going to get along with some other human when you don't even get along with yourself?
Yeah. No, and I don't profess to have fully arrived
Oh, yeah.
in it, because I feel like I can know how God feels about me, and I can go out into the world and society and not too much care about how you feel about me, because I know how God feels about me.
Yeah.
But there may be somebody that's close to me, like a wife, my children, or whatever, that if they share that they don't feel a certain way about me, or if it sounds like they don't feel a certain way about me, that could still be devastating in a moment. Now I have to take that back to how God feels about me or whatever. But in a moment,
Yeah.
that can catch you.
Yeah. It can make you mad. It
Yeah.
can make you all of
Yeah.
those things, but it should not ever shake your identity.
No.
And that's the thing that God is constantly revealing. Yes, you have emotions and things that are not nice that are said about you. If it doesn't sound nice and it seems like the people you love the most, you want them to see you in a positive, in a on a,
That's a need that we have
You
in
know
each
what I'm
other,
saying?
to
That we
feel loved
have
by others.
to feel that any person who say in that moment it doesn't affect them, then I don't know if they're human.
Okay.
But my thing is, how long do you sit in there, and is that getting ready to mess up the relationship for a long period of time?
Yeah.
That's the place that people get stuck in and have what we call grudges and all the things they carry. And then next thing you know, you don't even know that this is what they were carrying. And so the longer you carry it, the worse you get. Not them, but the longer you carry it, the worse you get. And that's another form of deception. You don't even understand that the longer you carry something that's unhealthy, you're the one who's getting sick, not the other person.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so and we can we can continue to dig more into the the thinking of people and how we do. I think I may I tend to also lean towards, I agree with all this, and that's why I want to dive into it. But I don't know if it's my Romans 12:2 mentality about renewing the mind, and how that matches up with a lot of what Christian neuroscience and neuroplasticity that they're teaching, the way our brains work and the neural pathways in our brain work. That makes me tend to believe that if someone is trained, someone trains themselves to do an action, and they train themselves enough to do an action, and they create a pathway to does an action, that they can do that action even before they get to this place that we're talking about, it getting your identity right with God and self.
So
and
basically,
things
they
like
don't
that.
need God.
Oh, I would never say that.
Okay,
No,
so if you can fix yourself.
So I'll look back at myself. I'll just take myself for example.
Okay.
I say, let me go back 20 years, and I'll say, things that would engage in conflict and things like that. There were things that I learned to do. Now, they weren't as beneficial as things I know now, but there were things that I learned to do that we could get into something, whatever, and then I would just say this or whatever because I learned to say it. Now, looking back, going back, I'm wishing I would have learned to step back, regardless of how I felt, regardless of what I was thinking. I wish I would have trained myself to say, whenever I feel like this, or whenever I feel this tension or whatever, take a step back and go and deal with myself. If I would have trained myself to do that, I would have saved myself from so much more conflict and arguments and disagreements and misunderstandings. Not that initial things couldn't pop up that would try to start them, but where we took them sometimes, and then the hours that, back then, sometimes days that we felt icky and yucky or whatever, I feel like we could have avoided that had I taught myself to, whenever that thing came up, just take a step back. If I would have taught myself this simple principle, this simple principle I'm about to share, y'all, this might become a short, I don't know. If I would have taught myself 20 years ago that when my wife sounds like she's fighting me verbally, when my wife sounds like she's fighting me verbally, she's not fighting me. She's fighting to be heard by me. She's fighting to be understood by me. If I would have trained myself to know that, I could have saved myself from a lot of conflict. I could have saved us from a lot of conflict just by training myself that. Now, that doesn't take away from the need for me to still need to understand who I am and I am loved. I am a success. I'm good. I am good enough. I am all who God says me, the Gideon complex. I'm who God says I am even before I thought I was. And then I can become that. I still need to do that work. And that's why we're going to dig into. But I want to share that for somebody who you're in both of these places. You need the mindset change it can be you and how you hear and mishear things, because you don't hear with your ears, you hear with your mind. You're in that place, but you're also in a place that you go fighting and yelling and going silent and weeks with feeling yucky and stuff like that. You're in both of these places. We about to spend the rest of this episode giving you some practical ways to work on your thinking. But I also want to tell you, in my opinion, that if you could train yourself to, when you feel it, when your legs start shaking, when you start getting nervous, when your voice starts getting loud, when all these things start happening, when all this stuff start happening, train yourself to take a step back, to stop and say, get back to yourself and say, there's something going on inside of me. Even if I don't know what it is right now, there's something going inside me. Do not take a step back and just sit on it's them. That will never work. That will never work. Take a step back and try to find out what's going on inside of me at this moment. And that then I believe will lead to what I want to spend the rest of this episode on talking about is what the things that you've been sharing is, how are we hearing and how is our hearing off?
Because to me, transactional people can do what you just said. But a person whose heart posture and connecting, it goes a little deeper than that.
So you think the brain works differently for?
No, what I am saying is no matter if you can train yourself to do something, we are never going to be operating in it like we should without a heart like God. And my heart, meaning like before I knew God, I had a different heart. The things that I thought, the things that I would do, the things that I maybe would say. And even if I could, to me, that sounds like motivational speakers where you get that moment of a high and you feel good and you can go with it for a certain period of time, but you find yourself coming back.
And see, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about
No, you're talking about
moment.
rewiring.
I'm talking about fully rewiring. I'm talking about creating a pathway to where because that's how we all respond to anything, whether we're born again or not. We respond based upon the pathways in our brains. And so some people, you can pull up in traffic and cut them off in traffic and they get mad and want to.
And then some it don't bother at all.
And then some people, they just like, whoa.
Man, maybe they're having a bad day.
We got different neural pathways. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? And so I just think the brain is made to work no matter how you are. I mean, that's the way that God made the brain. He made the brain to work on pathways. He made the brain to work on there are certain things that are in our subconscious or non-conscious that it's how we going to respond. And you don't have to tell me to respond that way. You don't have to, if you push that button or if this happens, I'm going to respond that way.
Okay.
And I'm going to respond that way because that's my pathway. And that can be changed. Now, we believe the best way is to rewire it according to God's way of thinking and what he wants to think about you and things like that. That's that Romans 12 too.
Yeah.
We want you to, that's the best way to rewire, to renew your mind and to rewire
Yeah,
your
because
brain.
I'm not trying to give them a different way. I want them to have the best way.
Yeah.
And some people that may be listening that don't know Christ, and they may just run with that one. No, you can't have one without the other. In my opinion.
When we're not saying, I'm not
Yeah.
saying that either.
Okay.
Every time I've said this, I've said, hey, you train yourself to do what's right in the moment, so that you can now get alone and do what God wants you to do.
Yeah.
And things like that. Some people, now we know this. Some people get so upset in their relationships and the arguments and the things that they have in the relationships that they don't run to God.
No.
It actually disrupts their relationship with God.
Yeah, because when you don't want to run to God and it disrupt that, then you're doing transactional stuff. Even if it's redoing something, you're still not connected to the source. And to me, you can be a robot can do that. A robot can be trained to say the right thing, do the right thing through the paths, or however we want to do it. But apart from God, you are nothing. And I don't ever want someone to hear me talk and think that there's another way, because he created it all.
Absolutely.
You know, and so he created the brain. So no scientist or something is going to come tell me there's a better way than the way that God has created it to happen.
And neuroscience, Christian neuroscience do
they
not
don't.
do that.
No, because we love Caroline Leaf.
Christian neuroscience tell you how the brain works and how to use it as a benefit to get you more like God.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So if you're going to connect to something like that, then you want to connect to people like a Caroline Leaf and different ones that are on that path, in that arena, that I'm getting God at the same time my mind is being renewed.
Yes.
And that's
Because
what I would do.
also we know that there are people who love God, read the Bible, faithful in church, all these type of things, but then they don't do specific work to renew their minds.
You just talked about a religious
And-
person and a Pharisee. You didn't
and
really
they
talk about
still-
a person.
They still can be emotionally triggered or something and then just go off. They may not cuss. They may not whatever. They may not do any of that whatever. But they can't control their emotions in that moment.
Yeah.
Because they haven't. And that's one of the things we tell people all the time. Sometimes, a lot of times, it's better for you to stick and stay on one thing in the Bible that you need to really get victory over than it is to say, I read the whole Bible.
Absolutely.
We read
just
the
like
Bible,
you just
but
said. They go to church. They show up. They do all of these things. Anybody can do that.
no, but I added in. I'm talking about somebody who really truly loves God. I'm gonna speak for myself. Because I've always loved God.
Yeah.
I'm gonna speak for myself. So this may not be everybody. I'm gonna speak for myself. Ever since I gave my life to Christ, I've loved God. I've loved you. I've loved God. I was passionate about serving. I was passionate about reading the Bible and getting to know who I am through Him, being a better husband, loving my children, being a better father. I loved God, but I did not do the necessary things in my mind renewal to keep myself from being combative in certain conflicts, during certain conflicts. I loved God. I absolutely love God. So I'm not speaking for everybody, because we know there's a lot of religious people that just go to church and just whatever.
Yeah.
But I loved God. I always have. I still do. But I could not, at times, I did not have the wherewithal to allow the love of God in me to override my old pathways that caused me to respond a certain way.
Yeah.
And sometimes that was quiet. Sometimes that was loud. Sometimes that was defensive. Sometimes that was fight or flight. That was all these different things that I did. And then I felt bad after we had some type of challenge. because I love God and I love you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how could I just get into that conversation?
Yeah.
How could I just go there? Man, God, I'm so sorry, man.
Yeah, and that was during the time, say, I start reading all these books, and you wasn't a reader at first, but the moment that you start reading too, and you start looking at certain things and listening to certain things at night when you were able to do it at night, those type of things start planting different seeds in you, and that means that even though you said you were in your 20s, you know what I'm saying, and in your 30s or whatever, it's like, okay, I just got saved. I want to love God. I want to do the right thing. Okay, we're not talking about
Hold on. That sounds good, but I'm just being honest. This went on more longer than I just got saved.
no. I'm talking about a new person that's
okay.
listening.
All right.
You just giving your life
I don't
to
want
the
to give
Lord.
no. I
No,
just
we
didn't
ain't
want to
talking
give
about
no.
you because I can
something
give
like,
them a dissertation.
I got, that this just happened in the first couple of years of my salvation. Okay.
No, what I am saying is that somebody can be brand new listening, and they can be so hard on themselves that they don't start. And we all had to start somewhere. And we all had to first acknowledge and accept Jesus as Lord. And
then acknowledge our thinking is trash.
yeah, but you don't even acknowledge that in the beginning because you don't know that.
Right.
You know, and I used to look at renew. What does it mean? Renew my mind. What does that mean? You
Right.
see what I'm saying?
A lot of people don't get that.
So, but that's the journey that God knows that you're on. Only because of the church is so twisted today, where discipleship wasn't in existing. If someone would have come alongside of you, I think all of us would have got there faster if it was the right person with the right information. But discipleship is almost non-existent in the church. They think it's only a class or think it's this. No, discipleship requires work, commitment, and sacrifice. Coming along another human to help them get to where you get further than where you started. And that doesn't happen that much that I see.
And let me add this into discipleship, because a lot of people feel like they really can't be discipled because they're not close to somebody, don't have somebody or whatever. But let me tell you something. Discipleship is just as much about the person being discipled than it is about the disciple. I mean, about the teacher. It's about the follower just as much as about the teacher. Because a disciple had to want to be disciple. They had to want to learn. They had to want to follow. They had to want to hear.
Right
they had
there.
to want to listen.
Yeah.
There are people who sit in churches or have classes, have the internet available to them, and they're not out trying to learn how to be closer to God, how to renew their mind, how to learn that or whatever. If you waiting on somebody else to come and spoon feed you all that, no, you're not a follower. A true follower, they were there listening, learning. Disciples, they memorized the teachings of Jesus. How do you think they were able to write this stuff back years after he passed or whatever? They memorized this stuff. A disciple knew what his rabbi was telling him, and he learned it.
And he followed.
And he followed it or whatever. And so a disciple is just as much about you wanting to learn as it is about your teacher who's teaching you. And so we don't have a lot of both.
Yeah, well,
out
yeah,
here.
yeah. And so I think about you in your early 20s and you coming in eyes wide open, wanting to love God, but you heard more about other stuff than you heard about loving God. You see what I'm saying? You heard more about making it than you did how do I change my life. You see what I'm saying?
How to change my thinking. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
And my identity.
Your identity. And so if people are not hearing that, that's why I'm saying that they may love God, but it's taking them longer to get there.
Yeah.
Because I live with you, so I know that you loved God, but it took you longer to get to a certain space until other things were presented.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so it wasn't that I just don't want to. And I'm just showing up out of religion.
Right.
And I'm just doing this because you got to have to want to serve. You have to have a heart for God to want to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about doing it for accolades or for you to be seen and for your need to be fulfilled in that serving. Because a lot of people serve out of the fulfillment that I want to be noticed and I want to be liked and loved. And you're trying to earn it.
Yeah.
We're not talking about that.
Right.
But I'm just saying that, yes, that thing was real in the beginning, but at the end of the day, we kept doing the work over time and over time, over time, over time, over time. And God, every time we cried out, God put us in position to get what we needed. And a lot of times people don't know to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'll just, say I feel like a person needs to really, every time that one of the things you can do is every time that you blow up, whether that watch this, whether that blow up is verbally out loud or silent inside.
Which is worse.
Doesn't matter. It's still if you matter. I mean, I'm saying it don't matter which one is worse.
Oh, okay.
They're both are bad.
Yeah.
So whether you blow up verbally out loud or you blow up inside, you need to take that and acknowledge that, okay, I'm not in the right space. I'm not feeling right. What is it? What's causing? And don't allow yourself to blame it on what somebody else said or what somebody else did. Use whatever they did or said to say to yourself, how did that make me feel? And not just talking about mad
Nope.
or anger. I'm talking about, did it make me feel like disrespected? Did it make me feel like they don't appreciate me? Did it make me feel like they feel like I'm a failure? Did it make me feel like
All them
I
real
feel like
questions.
they feel like I'm stupid? You need to ask yourself those type of feeling questions, because then once you add whatever is real, and if in that moment you ain't talking to nobody else, it's just you and God. In that you shouldn't be lying to yourself because you ain't talking to nobody else. So in that moment,
That's
when
funny.
you find out what is real about how something make you feel, then that's where you need to go to work on. Then you need to say, okay, God, what is it about me that makes me feel like that? What is it about my past? Whatever. What is it about me makes me feel that way? Learn to talk to God. God will say, that's not how I feel about you. I mentioned Gideon earlier. Gideon didn't see himself as the leader of an army. He was like, me? Who, me? And God's like, yeah, you mighty man of God.
No different than Moses. Me? Who, me? You want me to what?
Yeah. And so allow God to call you who he calls you all throughout his word. And then you meditate on that daily, until it becomes a part of you knowing who you are. And anytime it raises up, you go back and work on it. I can't work on your identity for you, and you can't work on my identity for me. That's something that I got to do with God and myself. And I think that's a practical way you can do is every time you see yourself, go there, get away, and deal with that.
Yeah.
And not let it just pass. It doesn't matter whether it passes between you and the other person, even though that's not good. But it doesn't matter whether it passes between you and another person. What matters is if you just let it pass yourself.
Yeah.
You can't let it pass yourself. You have to, every single time that there's a issue on the inside of you, that is an opportunity for go get it. Journal, whatever. Do what you got to do to work on that. That's one of the things I would say. I'm not going to say that's the only thing, but just to start the conversation, that's one of the things that I would say. What do you kind of do to help train your way of thinking so that you can hear better?
I journal a lot, and I write a lot, and I write the truth about what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking. I've always pretty much been in tune with my emotions and how I feel. And that's a conversation I've had with God all of my godly life. I'm just deeper with it now than I was when I was not mature to understand what was happening or whatever. And so that's a constant conversation. And it's a constant looking at the truth and what actually needs to change. And so I don't ever want to be a person who recommend things for others that I don't apply to my life, my own life. And so I'm always be in God's face. And with the work of the Holy Spirit, who is the one who shows us how to live, and constantly communicating with him to do it the way that God wants me to do it, not out of obligation, not out of feeling like God's going to be upset with me. None of those things do I feel. I just want to be a daughter of the the Most High God in an area of that's my baby girl and I'm pleased with her. And anybody who don't want God to be pleased with them, so I don't know what's wrong with them.
Yeah.
And so I live in a space where I constantly want God to be pleased with his daughter.
That's that's big because God loves me,
That's
and
a
there's
fact.
nothing I can do to change that.
Nope. Nope.
But that doesn't mean He's always going to be pleased with me.
There you go.
I can do something to change
It says
that.
without faith, it's impossible
Yeah.
to please God.
Right.
So if that means there's a possibility,
There's a way that you cannot
please God, but it ain't a way that he cannot love me.
No. It's
And
not a
so
way
those
that
are
you
two
can love
different things. And so I want, if I'm going to be his daughter, I want him to be pleased with his daughter. And so that's me and his thing.
me. Yeah.
That's our thing.
Absolutely. I think another way is listening or reading right information, that in line with the Bible, starting with the scriptures. But, the thing about reading books or listening to certain good information on podcasts is it can be information that's specifically directed to that area that you need to renew your mind in. If it's how you feel, how you see yourself, your emotions, all these different type of things, you can get some specifics on that, which can have root in the scriptures. And so finding good books, finding good people to follow, good people to listen to, I think that's another something that I love to do that helps me change the way I think. And when you change the way you think, you change the way you hear.
100%. Because it changes your belief.
Yeah, because you hear based upon how you think.
Yep.
And so you can be in a marriage right now and y'all are on rocky road. Your mind is battling whether you're going to call an attorney, separation or divorce or something like that. And where you are right now, you think it's only based upon the actions and the arguments and the different things that you have had, and those things play a role in it. But where you are is based upon how you're thinking.
And what you're willing to change.
And if you're willing to think differently and then willing to make certain changes, then where you see yourself now, where you feel now, can change.
100%.
And you can absolutely go from on the brinks of hitting the phone, picking up the phone book and looking for the nearest attorney, to calling a vacation place and wanting to go have a great vacation getaway with your spouse.
Yep.
But you got to do some work.
Yeah, I do some work. And that ain't one thing people great at. Is comfort and easy. And none of those things produce greatness
No.
or excellence or next level.
No.
None of those things produce that.
Nope. No. You got to work and got to be willing to do what's uncomfortable to you, uncomfortable to something you're not used to, to change. So yeah, no, that's great. Anything else any other practical things you want to maybe share with people to help change the way they hear?
If you're not able to do the work alone, get someone to help you do the work.
Okay.
Because it can be done. And if the way that God created the brain, like we was talking earlier, it can change. It can be rewired. It can, the things you feel and think today, it'll blow your mind that a year from now, it's almost like those feelings were non-existing. And I think about where I come from, or think about coming from a place of trauma or pain, and to live in today, I have to search to remember or to find it, because I allow God to heal me in all those places. And so you don't have to stay hurt and in pain for the rest of your life. And I talk to people who feel like that this is just their lot in life.
Yeah.
And it's so not true. But you have to be willing to do something, because can't no one force or drag you to do it.
No.
And no one else can do the work for you.
Nope.
You just even that's like cheating on a test. You cheated on the test and they gave you all the answers, meaning you have no information. So if the teacher came back and say, so how did you come up with that answer? You're probably going to be in trouble because you can't explain it, because there was no work involved on your end. Same thing in a relationship. Anything that is going to produce something good and fruit, it requires work.
Absolutely. I think that's a great one to end on. Listen, we try to do some of the work for you to make part of your work easy.
Giving
One
you
of the things you can
information.
do is just find an hour each week to listen to a podcast like this.
Yeah.
And we will help do some
Yeah,
of the
and
work
if you
for
ask
you.
questions, then we can come back and answer the questions that you asked. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? If you have to sign up at a YouTube with a fake name to get the help you need, do that
it.
too.
Do it.
You do whatever you got to do by any means necessary.
Yeah. So write in the comments there if you have questions or
Yeah.
concerns or your specific issues and you know that you don't felt like we addressed it. Put it in the comments, man. We're
Yeah.
going to read it. We're going to respond. And if it's something that we need to do a full entire episode on, we'll do an episode on it. If we need to throw it in a you ask, we answer segment early in the episode, we'll do that. If you ask a question, we want to respond to it. And so, we really appreciate all you that listen, all those that like, subscribe, and share. And so, help us keep doing this work for marriages and relationships. And you be a part of that journey with us. All right. And so that's it.
Yeah.
All right. We want to thank y'all for tuning in again to the Next Level Marriage Podcast, where I am one half of your dynamic duo, go by the name of Dr. James Bird, alongside my lovely wife, who goes by the name of,
Dr. Angel Bird.
and together we are
The Lovebirds.
We'll see you next week.
rock that never moves. This is how we learn what real love proves. Next Level Marriage Podcast. We're calling you to something deeper, something pure and true.